Gray Sloan Memorial went up in flames, leaving lives hanging by a thread, love stories torn apart, and one doctor gasping out what he thought were his final words. As fire engulfed the halls, blood soaked the floor, and a beloved surgeon died mid-operation, others were forced to make split-second choices that could never be undone. But what no one saw coming was who wouldn't make it out alive, and who did, but might wish they hadn't. Grey's Anatomy, Season 22. Episode 1 opens not with a whisper, but with a scream, and nothing will ever be the same again. Grey's Anatomy, Season 22. Episode 1 picks up immediately after the terrifying explosion that brought Gray Sloan Memorial to its knees. Within seconds, chaos erupts. Smoke pours through the hallways, alarms scream, and the once sterile corridors become a war zone of fire, debris, and screaming patients. Meredith Grey stares in horror as she watches the flames devour the facility from outside. But instead of hesitating, she acts. When police refuse to let her re-enter the hospital, she smashes through a glass door and utters the words that will define this episode. The clinic is open. With that, she storms inside, not alone, but leading a brand new group of interns into what can only be described as hell. Inside, it's worse than anyone imagined. Atticus Link Lincoln lies injured beneath a fragment of the ceiling that has punctured his collarbone. Blood pools beneath him, his breathing shallow. Miranda Bailey, Ben Warren, and Owen Hunt rush to his side, realizing the elevators are down and there's no clear way to an operating room. Every second counts, and Link is fading fast. Owen makes the call. "We'll go up the stairs." But even that won't be fast enough. Link starts to lose consciousness, bleeding uncontrollably. In a heartbreaking moment, Bailey hands him a phone. On the other end is Jo Wilson, pregnant with their twins. Link's voice trembles. "I cherish you," he tells her. "Love our children." "I feel really foolish because it took me so long to gather my thoughts to tell you that." It sounds like a goodbye. "Just in case, my password book is in the second left drawer of my desk," he adds weakly, before one final whisper, "Get a dog." Jo breaks down sobbing as the line goes silent. It's unclear if Link will survive. Meanwhile, the ER collapses into disarray. Monica Beltran, dedicated, unshakable, and fiercely brave, is partially pinned under heavy equipment. Despite her condition, she keeps guiding Jules Millen through a high-stakes operation on a 6-year-old patient. They're short on supplies, out of anesthesia, and racing against time. Monica insists, "Unless you want to watch that adorable little boy die, you open him up now." Jules obeys. Blood floods the table. It's horrifying, but she saves the child. Just as she breathes a sigh of relief, she turns to find Monica unresponsive. CPR starts immediately. Jules screams for help. She begs her to come back. But it's too late. Monica Beltran, who moments ago was a pillar of strength, dies on the OR floor. Jules crumbles, sobbing in Winston's arms before vanishing into the shadows, shattered and lost. And if that wasn't enough, Amelia Shepard rushes in, only to find Link's body being worked on by other doctors. She screams. She panics. But someone yells, "Get her out of here!" Her grief erupts into a heartbreaking confession. "My life has been defined by my father's constant absence since I lost him when I was a child. I don't want that for Scout." Her voice shakes. Tears fall. But she's escorted out. Powerless. Devastated. As the dust settles, Ben Warren steps up. Despite pushback, he insists they operate on Link right there at Gray Sloan. It's a risky call, but it works. Miraculously, Link is stabilized. After the surgery, Bailey turns to Jo and tells her, "That man was reluctant to part from you." Jo, still trembling, replies, "For 20 years, he's been my closest buddy." "Thank you. He means the world to me." And in that single moment, as Link reaches out and touches her hand, a flicker of hope returns. Brief, fragile, but real. But not everyone walks away. One life is already lost. Others hang in the balance. And as Gray Sloan smolders in the aftermath of the blast, one thing is certain. The explosion didn't just destroy a building. It shattered lives, ended friendships, and ignited battles that have only just begun. The explosion may have been contained, but the emotional aftershocks ripple through every corner of Gray Sloan Memorial. Grief hovers like smoke in the air. Doctors are moving, but many of them are operating on instinct alone, bloodied, exhausted, and emotionally raw. The lines between personal and professional blur, and with each ticking second, it becomes clear that this disaster has carved deep fractures into the very soul of the hospital. Teddy Altman, who once doubted Ben Warren's decision to return to medicine, now sees him in a different light. As she watches him push through flames and chaos to stabilize Link, something shifts in her. She approaches him not as a superior, but as a colleague and once kindred spirit. Her voice is low but sincere. "I used to take risks too," she tells him. "Make decisions on instinct. Now I'm a suit. I second-guess everything. But I shouldn't put that on you." In this rare moment of vulnerability, Teddy gives Ben permission, not just to finish his residency, but to become the doctor he's already proving himself to be. In the ashes of disaster, his identity as a healer is reborn. But hope is fragile and fleeting. On the blood-slicked OR floor, Simone Griffith is forced into an impossible situation. She's treating Danny Spencer, an intern injured after trying to take a selfie on her first day. Danny's abdomen is torn open and time is slipping fast. But Simone isn't alone. Standing next to her, almost as if fate demanded it, is Wes Bryant, her one-night stand who just so happens to be another new intern, and her supervisor. Tension crackles between them. Simone can barely look him in the eye. As they work, Danny's condition deteriorates, and the truth can't be avoided any longer. Simone finally speaks. "What we did was wrong," she says quietly, still refusing to meet his gaze. Wes responds with painful clarity. "If I had known who you were, it wouldn't have happened. You were my supervisor." The weight of their mistake hangs heavy in the air. Danny moans in pain, a horrifying reminder that this is not the time nor place for romantic missteps. Still, the damage is done. Trust has been compromised. Reputation is now a ticking time bomb. And if that wasn't enough, Simone soon crosses paths with Lucas Adams. Their last conversation, before the explosion, was a farewell, a breakup, a final undoing of something once tender. But now, surrounded by death and devastation, Lucas is raw. He doesn't hide his feelings. "I still care," he admits. There's pain in his voice, but also hope, maybe desperation. For a moment, it feels like they might find each other again. But Simone's voice cuts through the fantasy like a scalpel. "We nearly died in a hostage situation," she says. But real life isn't like that. Her words land like stones. "I slept with someone. I think we just need to take some time and focus on work." Lucas doesn't argue. He just walks away. Wounded, humiliated, but strangely free. Whatever they had, it's gone. Or at least buried beneath too much wreckage to recover anytime soon. Meanwhile, grief settles into Jules Millen like a second skin. She tries to wash Monica Beltran's blood off her hands, but it won't come off. The guilt, the loss, the pressure, it all builds. And when no one's looking, she vanishes. She disappears from the floor, not because she's weak, but because she's breaking. Winston finds her later, curled in a hallway, eyes red, hands trembling. He says nothing at first, because what do you say after a death like that? Finally, he whispers, "She didn't die in vain." But Jules isn't sure. Nothing feels right anymore. This episode doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't give us easy resolutions. Instead, it peels back the layers of every character, exposing their fears, failures, and wounds. Everyone is scarred, some physically, others emotionally, but no one is left untouched. The new interns, once eager and naive, now carry trauma they never asked for. Simone is emotionally split between guilt, grief, and career pressure. Lucas is nursing a broken heart while watching his ex fall into new mistakes. Jules is mourning a mentor who died mid-sentence. And Amelia, who only wanted to protect the father of her son, was dragged out of a room like a stranger. This wasn't just an explosion. It was a reckoning. And for many, the real damage has only just begun. As daylight breaks over Gray Sloan Memorial, the hospital no longer resembles a place of healing. It's a battlefield. Walls are cracked, lights flicker, every hallway bears the mark of the explosion, but it's what you can't see, the emotional injuries that bleed the slowest. The worst part isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. Inside the trauma wing, the mood has shifted from frantic action to numbing silence. Doctors who were racing to save lives now find themselves frozen, haunted by the moments they couldn't control. And no one feels that more than Jo Wilson. After Link's near-death call, after the silence that followed, she sat paralyzed, hands shaking, eyes locked on the screen, hoping his voice would return. It didn't. What returned instead were paramedics, soaked in sweat and blood, wheeling in Link's barely breathing body. Her worst fear was unfolding before her eyes, and she couldn't do anything to stop it. Jo's mind begins to fracture under the weight of it all, the idea of raising their twins alone. The image of him lying there, pale and limp. The final words he chose not to say in person, but over the phone. It consumes her. She doesn't want hope anymore because hope feels like a lie. And yet, when she's finally allowed into the room, when Link is stabilized and conscious enough to lift his hand, Jo breaks down again. This time not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Relief. That desperate, overwhelming kind of relief that shatters you after you've already been broken. In another part of the hospital, Richard Webber grapples with the weight of leadership. He had stepped aside, taken a back seat, trusted the system. And now that system has burned. Literally and metaphorically. The explosion has not only endangered lives, it's raised serious questions about oversight, preparedness, and accountability. Richard stands in the hospital's burned-out conference room, staring at the shattered glass and ash-dusted chairs. A place once filled with brilliant voices now echoes with silence. And he wonders, was this his failure? Should he have stepped in sooner, tightened the reins, fired someone? He doesn't get an answer, but he does get a visitor, Meredith. Though she didn't suffer any physical injuries, Meredith carries her own wounds, of responsibility, of return, of watching her home fall apart. She looks at Richard and says quietly, "You shouldn't blame yourself," but he doesn't respond, because deep down they both know someone is to blame, and once the smoke clears, fingers will be pointed. Meanwhile, Amelia roams the halls like a ghost. After being physically removed from Link's trauma room, she's lost her center. Scout's father almost died, and she couldn't even be in the room. It's triggered something deeper, older. Her father, the gunshots, the silence, the years of absence. It all comes crashing back, suffocating her. She doesn't go back to work. She doesn't check on her patients. She finds the hospital chapel and collapses onto a pew, whispering to a God she stopped believing in years ago. I can't lose him. I won't let Scout grow up wondering why his dad never came home. The prayer is broken, desperate, and when she finishes, there's no light shining down, no sign from above, just the sound of someone else entering the chapel. Maggie. The two women sit in silence before Maggie says, "We always think we're in control until something reminds us we never were." Amelia doesn't respond. She can't. The only thing she can do now is wait. Wait for Link to wake up, wait for Scout to ask questions she can't answer, wait for the next aftershock. Elsewhere, the interns gather, huddled and hollow-eyed. Their first day was supposed to be filled with orientation, introductions, maybe a little imposter syndrome. Instead, it was death, blood, and screaming. Danny Spencer, now stabilized, lies unconscious after her abdomen surgery. Jules still won't speak. Simone's emotions are locked behind a wall she can't break through. And Wes, he's walking on eggshells, not because of guilt over the explosion, but because of the choices he made with Simone. Lucas Adams watches them all from across the room. He's been through darkness before, hostage situations, family drama, loss. But this feels different. Like the trauma isn't going to fade with time, but deepen. The weight of leadership is slowly settling on his shoulders. Not because he asked for it, but because someone has to take charge when everything else falls apart. And then, in the middle of it all, news spreads. Monica Beltran's death has been officially ruled preventable. The room goes quiet. People freeze. Preventable. That word echoes louder than any explosion. Because it means someone made a mistake. Someone failed her. And now someone will have to answer for it. The blame game begins. And no one is safe. Grace Sloan is still standing. Barely. But the structure isn't the only thing cracked. Relationships are fractured. Confidence is broken. And as the camera pulls back from the hospital, smoke still rising into the Seattle sky, one thing is crystal clear. The explosion may have been the spark, but the real fire has only just begun. As the sun sets over Gray Sloan Memorial, the once bustling hospital lies in a fragile state of recovery. The sirens have faded, but the echoes of the explosion still reverberate through every corridor. It's not over, not even close. While wounds are being stitched and floors are being swept, the real scars, the ones that won't show up on any scan, have only begun to form. Season 22, Episode 1 doesn't end with peace. It ends with a warning. Healing will not come easy. Meredith walks alone through the charred halls she once called home. The smell of burnt wires and antiseptic still lingers. She doesn't speak, doesn't cry. Her silence says everything. This hospital was built on legacy. Ellis Gray, Richard Weber, Miranda Bailey, but now that legacy feels fragile. Meredith knows what's coming next. Investigations, lawsuits, press, but what haunts her most isn't legal fallout. It's the realization that the place she risked her life to rebuild can still be destroyed by one careless mistake. Outside, Joe Wilson sits beside Link's hospital bed. He's stable, but weak, breathing, but barely speaking. His words from earlier still haunt her. I cherish you. Get a dog. The kind of words a man says when he believes he won't make it. She holds his hand now, refusing to let go. Her mind flashes back to all the moments they shared. Laughter, heartbreak, friendship, late-night confessions, and now something deeper, something they never admitted, not even to themselves. Love, real, raw, and terrifying. Joe whispers softly, You don't get to leave me like that. You don't get to scare me like that again. And for a brief moment, he squeezes her hand. A silent promise. He's not done fighting. In another corner of the hospital, Jules Millen locks herself in a supply closet. It's the only place where no one's looking for her. Her hands still shake. Her ears still ring with Monica Beltran's last words. You've got to open him up. You've got to save him. She did, but she couldn't save Monica. No matter how many times she replays it, the result is the same. Monica coding, her chest still, her eyes frozen. Jules punches the wall. Once, twice, then collapses, sobbing. This is what it means to be a doctor here. This is the cost of wearing the Gray Sloan badge. Richard Weber calls an emergency staff meeting. The mood is tense. Questions hang heavy in the air. Who will be held responsible? Who will answer for the explosion? Who will explain how a gas valve was left open long enough to level a wing of the hospital? Jenna Gatlin, the patient's mother, is now under investigation. But the doctors know the truth. Blame is a hydra. Cut off one head and two more will grow. The system failed. The safety checks failed. Everyone failed. And the consequences are only beginning. Amelia, finally composed, watches Scout sleep in the pediatric wing. She hasn't spoken to Link yet. She can't. Not until she's sure he'll be there tomorrow. Not until she's certain that her worst fear, losing someone else she loves, isn't about to come true. Maggie joins her again, this time with a file in her hand. Test results. From earlier that day. She offers it to Amelia without a word. Amelia hesitates, then takes it. Whatever's in that file, whatever secret or diagnosis it holds, it's a time bomb waiting to go off. But for now, she tucks it away. She'll deal with it later. Right now, her only priority is being Scout's mother. And praying Link wakes up. Simone Griffith returns to her apartment alone. No Wes, no Lucas, no noise. Just silence and guilt. The weight of her choices presses down hard. She looks at her scrubs, stained with blood, and throws them in the trash. She needs to start over, needs to wash this day off her skin. But she knows the truth. What happened today will follow her. Into every surgery, every night shift, every glance exchanged with her colleagues. She didn't just lose control, she lost her sense of self. And that's not something you regain overnight. As for Wes Bryant, he remains at the hospital, filling out charts in silence. His mistake with Simone has already become gossip. The intern who slept with his supervisor before orientation even started. It's only a matter of time before HR gets involved. His reputation is unraveling before it's even begun. And the worst part, he doesn't even regret the night. They connected. But now, that connection has become a liability. One more thing to survive in a hospital already drowning in consequences. Outside, under the dim hospital sign now flickering after the explosion, Lucas Adams lights a cigarette with shaky hands. He doesn't smoke. He never has. But today, he needs something, anything, to ground him, to remind him he's still here. He thinks about Simone, about losing her again, about the chaos that consumed them. He knows she's right. The hostage situation didn't make their love real. It made it urgent. And urgency isn't enough. The camera slowly pulls back as Gray Sloan Memorial stands in eerie quiet. The building is still upright, but everything inside has changed. Lives were lost. Trust was broken. Relationships were severed. The explosion didn't just destroy rooms and equipment. It tore through the core of every character, ripping open old wounds and leaving behind new ones.